I just saw Cartridge Games on Twitter complaining about Switch 2 being delayed to 2025. Oh no, what am I gonna play? 2024 is looking pretty barren. Hey, genius! They can drop a Nintendo Direct literally at any time. Like, talk about a cope. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, where you seriously think you can come out and make statements about Nintendo disappointing you about like some arbitrary thing that probably wasn't real to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, why did you think this was a good statement to make? Like, why did you think you could come out and tell us that, like, oh, I'm disappointed in Nintendo for not releasing the Switch? Like, who cares? Like, this is what I'm talking about when I say that, like, Switch 2 advocates are completely out of touch, because like we keep seeing this over and over and over again where these people, they release statements, they say that, like, okay, this is what I want to see from Nintendo, they need to like release the Switch 2 this year, because the Switch is running out of steam, it doesn't have any games coming. And then what happens is that Nintendo announces a bunch of new games in a Nintendo Direct. You know, we saw this happen like last year in the June and especially the September Direct, right? They announce a bunch of new games, and these same people go backtrack, and they say, like, okay, these games are lazy, low effort, like just remakes and rehashes. They're not real games, basically. They're clearly saving their relevant. They're clearly saving their real games for Switch 2, right? That's always been the cope. That's always been how they. That's always been how they've acted. That's always been how they've dealt with these situations. But yeah, we see this over and over again, right? Where these guys, like, they make such a big deal about like Switch not having any games and Switch running out of steam and like not selling many units, and like the reality is like so different. The reality is that Switch is doing phenomenally well. It's getting new releases all the time. It's getting games like left and right. You know, this year alone, we got like what, another Code R, Mario versus DK, Splatoon 3 Side Order, like Tomb Raider remastered, like lots of games so far this year. A lot of them I don't care for all that much, but like to say that we're not getting games is like laughably dumb, right? And in March, of course, we have like my most anticipated game of the year, Unicorn Overlord, and then Princess Peach Showtime looks good as well. And like, of course, we have the very real fact that a Nintendo Direct could launch at any time. Like, it's the same thing every year, where these guys, like, come out and say, oh, there's nothing coming on the Switch, I guess it's a dead platform, and then, like, out of nowhere, look, ooh, Nintendo Direct. Okay, we have the next 4 months of Nintendo Switch software. Awesome. Okay, the Switch 2 is coming out immediately after that, like 5 months later. Like, no. Like they're gonna tell you ahead of time before the Switch 2 launches. Like, they're gonna let you know for at least a year in advance, I would say. Like, probably not more than that, but I would say like a year in advance. They're gonna give you heads up. Yeah, this is gonna be the last year for the Switch. Yeah. Like, like they did with the 3DS, right? The 3DS had a lot of warning before it was they dropped support for it. Because like, why would they like drop support for that? Like that was an extremely lucrative platform for them. Like the cope that everyone has that Nintendo is just going to drop support for the Switch is just not going to happen. Like, I would argue, like, this is one of the things that's been on my mind lately. Like, are we even sure the next piece of hardware is going to replace the Switch? Like, is it possible that they could just release a new piece of hardware and then, like, both of them just exist simultaneously? Because people forget this, that Furukawa released a statement about how Nintendo accounts are going to be unified between platforms going forward. So I think what that means is that, like, digital games might be transferable between accounts. And I think if that happens, like, everything is coming to the Switch eShop. And if that's true, like, I think a lot of lower budget games are still going to get released on Switch. Like, I think it's possible that we may see a lot of cross-platform support between Switch and the next Nintendo platform for a long time. It's possible the Switch might even continue to exist alongside it, like as a secondary platform, or even like the primary platform, right? Like that's something that people don't seem to understand is that like Nintendo doesn't necessarily need to replace the Switch. Like it just doesn't make any sense to do. But no, like we keep doing this thing, we keep doing this song and dance where these people pretend like, oh, I'm so concerned about the future of Nintendo. When in reality, like they've been doing this for the past decade. It's the same personalities with the same narratives, pushing the same conspiracy, the same tired conspiracies that got old a very long time ago. Like I feel more and more as if let's see. I feel more and more as if the narrative that Switch 2 is on the horizon and that it's going to immediately eclipse the Switch. Like it's going to immediately replace the Switch. Like that's becoming to me it's like obviously not going to happen. Right? I've mentioned this several times, but everyone just feels like there's been this unwillingness to concede that the narrative regarding the next Nintendo console is not true. Right. There's this weird attempt at rewriting like what's been happening, right? The whole thing like people released the fake narrative that the Switch was getting its new console in 2023. What happened? Oh, it was pushed back to 2024. What's happening now? Oh, it was pushed back to 2025. No, Nintendo didn't confirm anything. All of it was just speculation from people who don't know what they're talking about. And I knew that. I released statements about it. I covered it on my channel, but yet somehow people are surprised. People are surprised that like Nintendo is not releasing new hardware this year, even though they were very specific for the past several years, actually, that no, the Switch is not getting replaced this year. And people can keep hiding behind like the narrative all they want, but the reality is that like where is the new Nintendo hardware, right? The reality is that like your claims are not holding water. They're not making any sense. They're contradictory. They're ridiculous. They're absurd, right? More and more people are acknowledging that, like, yeah, what you're saying is obviously a complete lie. And with that being said, like, why exactly should we ever take you seriously, right? Like, why exactly do we have to go through this process like every single time? And again, I have a YouTube channel now. I have a platform now. I have like 1,000 subscribers. Like people tell me all the time that like they were surprised, that I was right about this. That like, oh yeah, like the Switch 2 isn't coming out anytime soon, right? Like to most people that was a weird out of nowhere prediction, but for me it was like it was obvious. Like I knew it was gonna happen, like because Nintendo said it was gonna because I actually paid attention to what the company was doing, and I respected what they were trying to do with the Switch and the future of the platform. Right? It's absurd to keep seeing people push these narratives, but it it uh it keeps happening, like over and over and over again. And I don't know at what point it's gonna stop. Like we really have to ask ourselves, like, at what point are we gonna see people acknowledge that yes, this is indeed a problem? Like, at what point are we going to see people acknowledge that there is an issue with the way that with the way gaming YouTubers conduct themselves? Like, these are questions that we really have to address going forward.